Ukraine has started a campaign of strikes inside Russia as part of what President Volodymyr Zelensky calls a 40-day effort to push the Kremlin to end the war. On Friday, Kyiv's forces launched over 600 drones at targets across Russia. Meanwhile, Moscow continued its strikes inside Ukraine. More than a dozen were killed in Sumy, including 2 children. That's according to Ukraine's state emergency service. Sumy has been under constant attack since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Now for some analysis, let's bring in Ben Friedman. He's the policy director at Defense Priorities. That's an American foreign policy think tank. Ben, Ukraine says it is trying to compel Russia to end the war. That's a quote with this new 40-day campaign. From your perspective, can drone strikes deep inside Russia actually push Putin towards negotiations?
I think they could help a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be a dramatic effect. The most impressive thing Ukraine can do to try to push Russia to end the war is to kill as many Russians as possible on the front lines and blunt their ability to further attack Ukraine. And of course, that's what Ukraine has been trying to do. The drone strikes, I think, intend a kind of terror effect, and I don't mean that pejoratively, in that, they try to show people deep inside Russia that the war can be brought to them, that they're not free of its consequences. And also, of course, they want to strike at energy infrastructure and other things that might affect the war effort. But, the amount of damage done by drones tends to be fairly small. I mean, with enough of them, you can do a decent amount, but I don't think it's going to have a big strategic effect. What it might do is have some psychological effect, but that could actually cut both ways.
Well, I was coming to that in my next question. Russia claims it intercepted 660 Ukrainian drones overnight. Now, even if we take Moscow's numbers cautiously, does the scale of the attack not show that Ukraine has found a quite cost-effective way to maybe tip the scales in this war?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the drones are not intended to all get through. The idea is that, they're cheap and you can make so many of them that it doesn't matter if like half of them get shot down. A lot of them are going to make it sense. They're very effective, but they also don't carry that big a punch in terms of their explosive ordnance. So you can't do an intense amount of damage the same way you could, for example, from a U.S. bomb or, a large aircraft that carries a lot of gravity bombs. But you can certainly have an effect on the morale of the enemy if they feel all of a sudden this area well behind the lines or deep in Russia that was a sanctuary isn't anymore. That could affect them. On the other hand, bombing people, as we see with Iran, can cause an effect that you didn't intend, to sort of rally people around the flag and make them even more angry and willing to carry out the war. So whether or not that will be the case in Russia, I'm not sure, but I don't think we should be positive that the strategic effect is going to be major or even that helpful.
Now, Ukraine appears to be targeting oil, energy, naval and air defense infrastructure. Is that a smart way to weaken Russia's war machine?
Well, it's a strategy that has a solid rationale behind it, which is that, all those things contribute to the war. So you could say that these are tactical airstrikes, meaning that they affect the ability of Russian forces to perform on the battlefield. In the past, Ukraine has also done what you could say are strategic strikes, and Russia's done the same to them, which target, political targets, even potentially civilians, and those strikes would have more political effect or strategic effect, like strategic bombing, where you're just trying to terrorize the opposing side into giving up the war cause. So I do think aiming at oil infrastructure and so forth is probably better than the latter type, the strategic type of airstrikes. But again, it's probably not going to make a major difference on the battlefield. It's still really the front lines where the war will be decided and has stalemated.
Now, you have argued before that a partial ceasefire around energy infrastructure and also the Black Sea could help open the door to a permanent end of the war. Does this new strike campaign now make such a ceasefire less likely?
I don't know if it makes it less likely. I just, I don't think that the Ukrainians are in a mood for a ceasefire of any sort at the moment. I mean, if their tactic is to sort of show that they can hit these things, to get Russia to agree to stop targeting their energy infrastructure, that may work. But it was in the past they did have ceasefires of that sort. They were basically broken before they were even implemented, and I think you need to be in a position where both sides are sort of ready to seriously bargain if the ceasefire is going to be a step to these larger talks. For a fuller ceasefire, let alone a armistice, which could take months or years of negotiation. So I'm not sure we're at that point where it'll be that useful, but it's worth trying. I think really, we've been at this war for years now, and it's stalemated. I don't think the lines are going to move very much, and so I'm not sure what anyone is really accomplishing by continuing to throw bodies at it. And so a settlement would be good, even if from Ukraine's perspective, it's not a just settlement. I don't think a just settlement is going to be available. So what they need is something that's going to end the carnage.
Now, if you were advising the White House today, what would be the clearest U.S. message to Kyiv and also to Moscow? Keep striking, start negotiating, or something more complicated?
Well, I don't think you need a ceasefire in place to start negotiating. The White House has taken that strategy that you want to end the fighting and then negotiate, which is not unreasonable, but it didn't work. I think you might want to just get into negotiations and see how far apart the sides are. I think a lot of people believe that they know, how intransigent the Russians are, that they'll never settle for, anything less than the whole Donbass and several other sort of unreasonable things. But you don't really know that until you get in the room and negotiate. And there's some indications they might be ready to settle for less. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but let's at least explore the possibility and begin negotiating. So I think the White House has been basically incompetent in trying to steer these negotiations. And at this point, it might be better just to shove the two sides into a room together and see if they can do anything, because I think the sort of mediation of the Trump administration officials that they sent was not effective.
Ben Friedman there, Policy Director at the American Foreign Policy think tank Defense Priorities. Thank you very much, Ben.